Acumatica Manufacturing Edition provides a manufacturing estimating application. The estimating module is adaptable with configurable estimate preferences and estimate classes. You can create estimates after setting up the preferences and classes. You can create estimates for new items that do not exist in inventory. You can see here that there's a checkbox that tells us this item is not in inventory. On the next item, you'll notice the checkbox disappears, so this item is already in inventory. You can create simple or very detailed estimates. Quantities and costs are rolled up from associated bill of material, labor operations, items, tooling, and overhead costs. You can easily override any of the cost elements on the estimate. For example, maybe this is a slow time of year and you want to charge $100 for labor instead of the normal cost of $200. And maybe you have a surplus of material and you want to provide a lower cost of $200 for this estimate. All of the fixed, variable, machine, and overhead costs are summarized at the bottom for a total cost estimate of $319. I can uncheck the overrides and let everything roll up based on each operation on the estimate. Estimates include revision dates, item class details, and warehouse locations. You can also define the estimate owner and the engineer who prepared the estimate, manage request and promise dates, and set a lead time for the estimate. There are 5 areas for each estimate organized as tabs at the bottom of the screen. The first tab is where you manage operations that control the cost roll-up details for the estimate. The References tab shows the source for the estimate, which could be linked to a sales opportunity in the embedded CRM application. It also shows related quotes from the sales order application and additional information. The Image tab allows you to import or link to an image of the estimated product. The Description tab is useful for creating notes for the estimate. This could define specific components or customer requirements and other details for the estimate. The History tab provides an audit log of all the changes made to the estimate over time. It documents who made the change with a date and timestamp. The Totals tab is used to prepare the estimate and subsequent customer quote, set the order quantity, and define markup percentages for labor, machine, material, tooling, overhead, and overall cost elements. You can change currencies as well for international quotes. The last section displays the total cost from the Operations tab and the estimated unit cost based on the defined markups. You can also override the final unit price. Let's return to the Operations tab. This is where you define the costs used for the estimate. Let's drill into the assembly operation on the estimate. This operation contains information for part of the overall cost roll-up for the estimate. You can override fixed, variable, machine, material, tool, and overhead costs at the operation level as well. The work center defined for the operation sets the work center overhead rates. You can also adjust the setup times and run rates using run units and runtime. For example, you could change this from 10 units per hour to 10 units every 30 minutes. The same concept applies to machine rates using machine units and machine time. Items may be either inventory items or non-inventory items as well. Here you can see that the first 2 items are not in the inventory. I may need to use the requisition management application to get a vendor bid or quote for these items. I can then add that cost to the estimate here. The last item on this operation is an existing inventory item. The cost will come in based on the inventory valuation and cost settings defined for the item in inventory. The Tooling tab is where you specify required tools to add a cost to the operation for its use or for tooling consumed by the operation. The last tab is Overhead. You can set up and maintain a variety of overhead costs to accommodate the true costs associated with each estimate. These could include things like administration, floor space, utilities, and more. Overhead costs may be fixed or variable by labor hours, labor cost, material cost, machine hours, quantity completed, or total quantity. Each overhead cost has a cost rate and is associated to a specific GL account for accounting. The cost rate is multiplied by a factor, providing flexibility for overhead cost calculations. When we win the estimate, we can still make revisions, which are logged on the Revision History tab. We can then create the inventory item using a process screen to generate the new system records, instead of having to go back and rekey all of the information by hand. Once you have won the estimate, you can still make revisions based on last-minute customer feedback or changes, which you'll see in the Revision History. When you win the business, you can create inventory items quickly. You don't need to go back and rekey all of the non-inventory item information. Instead, this process screen automatically creates the inventory records for you. Estimates can be created from scratch, or you can copy estimates from previous estimates. You can also copy estimates from production orders and from bill of material records. This is a great way to get started with new estimates by leveraging information already defined in the system and then making adjustments to the details. You can also archive revisions. This process locks the revision and creates a new revision for the record. You can also view the associated quote and print that out for the customer directly from the estimate screen. You can also create a bill of material and production order from an estimate. This significantly shortens the handoff to production when you win new estimates. This scenario is common in many make-to-order environments where you are unlikely to ever make this exact product again. You can also view orders and add this item to a sales order. From the Reports menu, you can print the customer quote or a summary report for the estimate. And that concludes the Acumatica manufacturing estimating demonstration.